All right, man, we're back. Week 5. Last time I was talking about how I was reading the Michael Cimino book, and I've since finished it. And man, it was a good read. Now, when I was through it at the time, I thought it was going to be primarily about the production of Heaven's Gate, but what I didn't realize is that that was just one piece of it. It's more about the Hollywood system turning its back to Cimino, probably rightfully so. I mean, the book, the author of the book, it's in the other room right now. I don't have the author's name, but you can definitely tell that he's trying to be fair, but he is definitely very defensive of Michael Cimino. And I say defensive, I don't mean hostile in a way, but I mean in the way of towards the third portion of the book, the you can see that the author's opinions start to be weaved more into the narrative, and some points I don't really agree with in terms of some comparisons that he was making between some of the other filmmakers at the time, and I don't have any specifics off the top of my head. I'm just saying there's a couple of times when he was saying some stuff that I didn't quite agree with, but for the most part, I think it tries to be a fair look at Cimino, his life, the films that he made, and it's interesting to see what kind of the change in his life, pretty much after not even so much Heaven's Gate, but probably the Sicilian or Year of the Dragon, the films that he made afterwards, and the lifestyle that he led. It talks about the tabloid kind of press going after him and kind of speculating on whether or not he was getting some like a sex change or gender surgery or whatever it's called, and talk about him being kind of exploited and Hollywood kind of turned its back on him. I mean, and it's interesting because, for all intents and purposes, it paints a very complicated picture of Cimino, how he can be very difficult and very cruel on set, and he wasn't very aware of. He was given, maybe I don't want to say given too much, but he was given so much that which in fault of the heads of United Artists, who gave him everything he wanted and more, and then we're still trying to control it. Whereas at that point he basically had unlimited reign and power and money to just do whatever he wanted. And the downfall that they were hedging a lot of their bets on him. Not all of them. The book does make a point to say that it kind of breaks the common misconception that it wasn't Heaven's Gate that sunk United Artists. It was different factors going into it and a mismanagement from the top. But it is interesting how Heaven's Gate is undeniably one of the factors that did lead to its downfall. And the book talks about. Let me just get another sip of my coffee. Hold on. The book talks about the reappraisal that the film has gotten. I wasn't aware that the Criterion release was the director's cut that was considered to be lost for a while, or unreleased, maybe more so. I didn't realize that. I said, I have to correct myself, man. I said that Joan Corelli was his girlfriend. That couldn't be further from the truth. She was actually married to David Mansfield, who was in Heaven's Gate. He was a violinist, and Joan Corelli and David Mansfield had a kid whose name I'm blanking on. I apologize, but the book talks a little bit about the complicated relationship between the not quite love triangle, but Michael kind of treating their child as his own, and some of the feelings that David Mansfield had about it. And it's a weird situation, man. It's a very complicated situation, and I'm not going to paraphrase it. You should go read the book yourself. But it's interesting, that point, and how much he had basically been focused on his daughter and focused primarily just on on her. And them having a good relationship. It was really like just the three of them: her, Joan, and Michael, and David kind of being a different part of it. But what I was saying before is I didn't realize that they approached Criterion about it, and I haven't seen Heaven's Gate at all. it's a film that, runtime is one thing that doesn't bother me, man. I mean, if a film is great and there's a long runtime on it, then that's no problem at all. I think why I put off watching Heaven's Gate, besides just general disinterest, was that with a film that is 3.5 hours, that I've never really heard generally positive things about. It always had that kind of stigma of being a disastrous film. I think that's kind of why I wasn't as keen on checking it out. But the book has definitely made me want to watch it, and I definitely am going to make a point of it at the next Criterion sale. It's definitely going to be one that I'm going to make a point to seek out and pick up, absolutely. And I am very curious to watch Year of the Dragon as well, and the Sicilian maybe a little bit. I think that had, well, man, what's his name from Highlander? Oh, gosh, I'm blanking on his name. I'm really sorry, but the lead actor from Highlander, whose name I'm blanking on, he's in the film as well. And it's just a very interesting look at Cimino's life, how his eccentricities and the later portion of his life when he became kind of like a different figure overall. And they talk about an instance where he was at, you couldn't really interview him because he liked to do things his own way. He was a very kind of controlling person. Because they talk about a whole thing where he goes to France or somewhere, I don't remember where he was, they were doing a screening of Heaven's Gate or something like that, and they were just going to interview him and then have a Q&A that was going to run an hour, but then Cimino kind of took it over and they had to like really shut it down, and he got really defensive about it. It's very interesting, man. It's definitely somebody who, just right time and place, man. I mean, you could say maybe it's luck with, Cimino is an interesting figure, man, because I think he's a guy who, they talk about all of his writings that he did, because actually he went on to be an author, and a lot of the screenplays that he wrote. And I think he's a guy that I think they should have just given him a lot to do, a lot of films, but smaller budgets, man. Because the problem is that you give him all this money for Heaven's Gate, and it doesn't work out. It's hated by critics, it's hated by the audiences, and that's kind of it. Where it's sort of like this guy has so many ideas that if you had a handful of modestly budgeted films, maybe they don't all stick, but maybe you get one or two. I mean, you look at the titans of that era, the 70s filmmaking. The Coppolas, Scorsese's, the Bogdanoviches, and yeah, not every single one of their films, man, is a masterpiece, but they do have enough. All three of them, and those are just three that I threw out, they both have enough unique films under their belt, and that's why they're considered the greats, because even if everything doesn't work, you have those greats that they can go back to. So I don't think Cimino, and it is Cimino, it's not like Cimino was totally a victim, man, because he isn't. Like I said before, the book does really kind of show the back and forth of how difficult he was, and some of, and the just the mismanagement on everyone's part of it, and it's an interesting look at just an artist that just got these weird circumstances and wasn't, he didn't deal in the best way, and he wasn't dealt them the best way. It's an interesting book, man. I really liked it. I believe it's a new release because they reference like the 2020 pandemic and stuff, and I think they reference something newer as well. I don't remember, but anyways, man, check it out. It's a good book. I'm reading, actually I have my next book right here. I'm reading a couple books right now. Maybe I'll talk about those, but I'll put that back down. But let me get another sip of coffee, man. We're going to talk about the first movie, one that I'm really looking forward to talking about. And, man, today is a busy day. The fact that I even had time to record this is kind of a miracle, man. I'm going to the cinema right after this, so I got to do some stuff here quick, and then I will be good. So let me just get this, and I'll be good. I'm a little all over the place right now, so I apologize. I'm a little uncoordinated with some of my discussions. Anyways, man, so happy to talk about the new 4K restoration of Dennis Hopper's film from 1980, Out of the Blue. Man, this film blew me away. I had seen this a long time ago on a pretty low quality transfer online. It didn't look great, and be honest with you, when I first watched it, I liked it, but I didn't quite love it. It was a lot to take in, and this was I'm not going to get into the whole production on the film and how he wasn't supposed to direct it and all that. It's an interesting story about just the making of the film and the context given with Hopper's position in Hollywood at the time. What was interesting is that, so I went to the cinema to go see this with the new 4K restoration that apparently was produced by what's her name, Natasha Lyonne and Chloe Sevigny. I don't know how much work they actually did, or if they're just names to put on it, but either way, it had like a thing from them. But it had an opening kind of text that talked about Hopper's position in Hollywood, how the success of Easy Rider, the failure of the last movie. Even though I'm a big fan of the last movie, actually, between you and me, man, don't tell anybody. I like the last movie way more than Easy Rider. I know, controversial to say, but big fan of that film. Anyways, man, Out of the Blue was kind of something of a spiritual sequel in a way to Easy Rider. Even before I knew that that's what Hopper had in mind, it's a film that I always kind of envisioned as if the response to Easy Rider, maybe not. I'm sorry, response isn't the right word. The time frame of you have Easy Rider, which is 69, and Out of the Blue, which is 80, and brief spoilers for Easy Rider. So if you haven't seen the film and you don't want the ending spoiled for you, just skip ahead 15 seconds. But if both the characters in Easy Rider had lived, and what they would go on to do trying to fit into society. And with that, so you have a great lead performance here by Linda Manns, who recently just died a couple years ago. R.I.P. man. If you remember her probably most from Terrence Malick's Days of Heaven. She plays the daughter in that film of Richard Gere and Brooke Adams, and she plays in this film the daughter of Dennis Hopper and Sharon Farrell, and she plays this character CB, and she is kind of a loose cannon, man. Her character is so interesting, man. Sorry for my language, man. I might just spend the whole time talking about this movie. I have so much to talk about with that. I have a couple others I could get to, but I kind of just want to talk about this. But let me get another sip of coffee, man. I'm so happy to talk about this movie. You guys have no idea how much I love this movie. Let me get some more coffee. We're gonna talk about it. Man, the cinema that I go to see movies, not the big multiplex, but the smaller one. They have some coffee there, man, and it will knock your socks off. It actually has a warning on it. It says, beware, if you drink this, your socks will be knocked off. So just heads up, man. You might want to go barefoot when you drink that coffee. It's some of the tastiest coffee I ever had in my life. One more sip, and then we're going to get through this, man. Alright, man, so Linda Manns in the movie, such an interesting performance. So she plays the character CB, and at the beginning of the movie, her father, Don, played by Dennis Hopper, gets into a horrible accident, man, and he's in jail, and she's living with her mom. She's a teenager, but she's like a slacker, man. She loves Elvis. She has like an Elvis jacket. She hates disco. Disco sucks, man. And she also is getting really into punk music as well. But she is really her own person. She's very like mature for her age. Not necessarily in when I say mature, I don't mean like she's wiser. She's just definitely she feels like a character who has lived like a long life and is kind of disenchanted with the world. There's a great long sequence in the film where she runs away from home and she goes out to the city, and it's just a phenomenal sequence because it's a character who doesn't really have a good parent figure. I mean, her father's in jail. Her mom is dating this guy who runs a diner, and they get along. They're good with each other at first, but you can definitely tell there's a disconnect there. Kathy, played by Sharon Farrell, was great in the film as well, man. She is kind of, even though she's dating this guy who runs the diner, which I apologize, I don't remember who the actor was. He seems like a good guy. He wants to treat her right, but she flirts with other men, and she lets other guys kind of grab onto her and stuff. And understandably, the owner of the diner is like, hey man, that's not really cool. But she is like she feels like somebody who was like a party girl but never really grew up, and so she doesn't really understand why not a good role model to her daughter, and she doesn't understand why her daughter acts this way. But like I was saying before, man, there's a great long sequence in the film where CB goes out and she goes out and runs away, and Sharon Farrell and the other characters are out of the movie for a while, and she goes to like this punk concert, and she meets up with this taxi driver guy, and oh man, that I don't know who that actor was, but that actor is great. This is real like scuzzy apartment that she goes to, and the way that scene plays out, it's like uncomfortable, man. And oh man, there's this chick there in lingerie, and the way that scene unfolds, it feels like there's this rising tension, just like they're not going to let her leave, but there's not a lot of dialogue in it. It's very much just like the way that the characters are positioned, and the way that they're just like kind of over her, on top of her, pretty much. Not like physically on top of her, but I mean like kind of surrounding her. Oh man, it's like this character who is going to the big city, wants to live this kind of live this kind of like big life, just has no idea what she's in for. But at the same time, there was still that childhood innocence in her, because what I love about the film too is that she loves Elvis, man, but she also loves punk music, and it's kind of like those two forms right there are kind of like yin and yang, where you have Elvis, which is a bit more what's the word I'm looking for? It's a bit more like friendly, I guess, more safe, more traditional, I guess you would say, comparatively to the punk music, which is really rowdy and very anti-authoritarian and stuff. And so it's interesting because you have the moments where CD wants to act like a lot more mature and wants to go out and do things, but there's a song she keeps singing by Elvis where I think it's like, oh god, what the hell is that song? It's like something about "You're my teddy bear," or I want to be your teddy bear, or something like that. So you have this kind of back and forth of like wanting to, not really fitting in anywhere, because she amongst her friends, man, she's the most go get it. She's the one who, like, there's a part where they're talking about like, she's like, oh, I want to go in there, I'm gonna get a beer, I'm gonna get like a drink, and they're like, man, you can't go in there, and they're like, we're not gonna do it, and she's like, okay, well, I'll do it then. So she goes in there, and then it doesn't work out, but she just feels so isolated from the rest of the world. She doesn't have a parent. She doesn't have any real parental figures in her life. She doesn't really have any friends, but she still kind of wants that life. It's sort of like she's somebody who, if raised right and under the right circumstances, she could have been a really good kid, in terms of good, but not, when I say good, I don't mean like, she's not like a bad person, but she is, she is rebellious. And I love this kind of look of just being in suburbia, being, white picket fenced, suburbia kind of lifestyle, but these characters still feeling like outsiders. You have Dennis Hopper's character, Don, who, which I always thought was kind of questionable, man, is that he does this horrible thing at the beginning of the movie, and then he's out of prison, in a couple of years, and I'm like, man, I think they probably put you to death for something like that. I mean, it's pretty gnarly what he does, man. I won't give it away, because when you see it, it's like kind of shocking, man, especially when they cut back to it later and you see the aftermath. It's like, oh my gosh, there's a body dragging. Oh my gosh, man, it's insane. But you have Dawn who's coming back, and what I said about it feels like kind of the same character in a way from Easy Rider, where Easy Rider, in that film, they're on the open road. The country is theirs, man. It's the new America. They're taking drugs, they're going out there with women, and it's really obviously the way that film turns out there, it's not a glamorous, it's not a permanent lifestyle. Like you can't thrive on that. Actually, I'm thinking of Lost in America with Albert Brooks. That's a really great film as well. But that's for another discussion. But this character who's out of prison, but he's just still like, right once he's out of prison, man, he is like a hard alcoholic. His party back, he's just so drunk, and he just cannot conform to society. He cannot conform to this lifestyle. He has a construction job, and just the problems that he has there, and he's just somebody who is an outsider. And these two outsiders who are, really it's all three of them are outsiders, but in different ways. And this is a really troubling kind of family unit. Raymond Burr's in the movie for a little bit. He plays this character, Dr. Breen, and he talks about wanting to really kind of, he sees the potential in CB, and he sees kind of the issue that's going on, and but there's nothing he can really do about it. He kind of has to look from the outside in. And there's some moments in the film that feel, it's weird because Dennis Hopper originally wasn't going to direct the film, and there's two instances in particular that feel that are unexplained, that are they I don't know if it's intentional or not, that they're not really given any sort of prior knowledge. Two instances. One, Don, he at one point he gets an item, I'll say, which is not really explained where he got the item from. He just says, oh, I have this now to CB, and it's just there to set up the end of the film, which is fine, but it's just strange where he would even get that from. I mean, I guess you could say, I mean, might have an explanation, but you know. And number two, there's a character who has a rightful vendetta against Don, and there's a great sequence at a table when he's trying to confront him, but Don is so drunk and he's just so messed up, and how aggressive he gets, and even though he's completely in the wrong, and that character's out of the movie for a little bit, and then he comes back very briefly in a sequence that I don't know if there was something else cut out, but it feels very strange. It feels like there was more to that plot line that was kind of dropped. Again, to not even really set up something else, just to kind of wrap up that character in a way. It's very strange, man. It kind of took me out of the movie for a second. Not out of the movie. I'm sorry, that's not the right word. It took me like off guard. Caught me off guard, I should say. And I don't, because, you know, with Dennis Hopper, the way that he, you know, directs is that it feels kind of drunken at times, but not incoherent. Like, there's a lot of times where it's a very loose kind of story structure where you get these kind of long sequences with characters just on their own, where the plot's not really advancing, because this isn't really a plot-heavy film. This is more about the characters, primarily about CB and her damaged kind of childhood and stuff. And there's something in the last act that they introduce that, you know, I don't really have a problem with, but I think was very underdeveloped. It's something that CD mentions, which maybe if you've seen the film, you probably know what I'm talking about, in a scene in a bedroom, that I felt like it does kind of change some perspective on earlier events in the film and her development into a teenager, but it was a little... for something that late in the film to be kind of so briefly mentioned, it kind of takes you off guard a little bit. And you know, the title song of the film by Neil Young, you know, Out of the Blue. This is a film they play it at the right time. It's a film that it's like The Graduate. They have a couple Simon and Garfunkel songs in that, but they play it at the right times. And at the end of the film, you have the final image with the credits rolling up, man, and you have Out of the Blue playing. It's a beautiful song, man. It's absolutely beautiful. And man, it's just perfect, man. This is a film that it's not going to be for everybody. I can't stress that enough, because, like I said, when I first saw this film, man, I didn't really know what to make of it. At that time, I was on such a Dennis Hopper high, and it was just strange, because I should have been more into this, man, because I loved, even right from the get-go, I loved the last movie, but I know the last movie is, this is more accessible than that film. That film is very... that's a film that feels very drunkenly made, not as an insult, but that sort of like stream of conscience, like now we're doing this, and then if you watch the documentary, The American Dreamer, which is less about the making, the post-production of that, more about Dennis Hopper at that point in time. You know, whether some of it is scripted or not is kind of up for debate. You know, I'm of the mind that I don't think all of it is documentary. I really do get the vibe that a lot of that is scripted, but I could be totally wrong. It just kind of feels like that. But where he was in that mindset of just how messed up he was on drugs and drinking, and then his eventual blacklisting from Hollywood. And another great film he did around that time is Mad Dog Morgan, which just got a release from Indicator in the U.S. That's a really terrific film as well, an Australian film where it's actually a really wild film. But yeah, this is one that it just really sat with me for, I must have watched this at least, gosh, maybe a little less than a decade ago. I really don't know. But rewatching it, there was just so much that I still remembered, and so much that stuck with me. And, you know, I think I said it before, man, you watch so many films that even films that you love or like, you just, you know, sometimes you forget about them. I mean, you know, it's just life. If you watch a lot of stuff, there's no way you're going to be able to retain it all. But this film, there was just so much that even though I didn't love it, it really stuck with me for all that time. And then going back and rewatching it, it's just like... It all connected for me. It's just a film that I've been thinking about so much since I saw it last week, and how much I loved it, and how Linda Mann's performance, man, it's just so good in the movie. I mean, it was such a shame we didn't get her more stuff. I know she did some stuff after the fact. She did she was like one of the characters in Gummo, Harmony Korine. I think she was in some movies like The Game as like a small part and stuff. But I was getting her mixed up with the actress who was in Liquid Sky and Alice, Sweet Alice. I don't remember her name, but she was another actress who is really great in both those films, and you know, she didn't really have a very long career. She died as well. What's her name, actually? I'm gonna see if I can look her up. She was the lead character in Liquid Sky, and she was I think the sister in Alice, Sweet Alice. What's her name? Yeah, Paula Shepherd, man. Or no, wait a minute. Oh, okay, she didn't die. She just hasn't been in any movies. My bad, man. Yeah, she plays Alice in Alice Sweet Alice. And all right, my bad. I guess she's not dead. Well, hey, I hope she comes back. Anyways, man. I'm going off on a tangent here, man. I just can't stress how much I love this film. I just walked out of the cinema. I just totally floored. This is just Dennis Hopper, man. Really, he was just such a genius, man. And it was funny because at the cinema they were showing some other films that were going to be playing soon, and they showed a trailer for Blue Velvet as part of like a David Lynch kind of retrospective they were doing, and it was just funny to see him in that and in that trailer or that little moment and think like, okay, yeah, it's just funny how we had this big resurgence kind of like after this film and Blue Velvet, and people probably general audience would know him from like Speed or something like that, and then he's in like Land of the Dead, and he's just such an interesting guy. And actually, there was a book when I went to go get another book, and it was about one of the women he was dating in the 60s that I really want to read. I'm really looking forward to checking that book out. I can't remember what it was called. It was a yellow book cover, but he's just such an interesting guy and has led such a fascinating life. I think and it's just funny to think about the westerns and stuff he did beforehand. He was in stuff like Hang 'em High, and like a small part in that. And there was another big one he was in. What the hell was that movie? It was oh god, what the hell was it? It was something I watched recently too, I think. Yeah, I can't remember. I was trying to scroll through here and try to keep up, but it hasn't worked out. But yeah, even stuff like Giant and small part in Rebel Without a Cause and stuff. And yeah, I mean, he was just such an interesting guy, interesting actor. And of course, like River's Edge, of course, Rebel Fish. I just love Dennis Hopper, man. And this film just made me just love him, of course, even more. But just the performance by Linda Manz. Man, it just really knocked me in my ass. And she died in 2020, and you know what? It's a shame because with the new 4K coming out by Severin Films, which definitely gonna be pre-ordering that, because I can't wait to watch the features on this. Right after this was done, I was just like, man, I really want to check out some behind the scenes stuff on this. It's a shame that there's not a new interview with her on it, unfortunately, because obviously she died before. Probably they were really underway with this, but I would have loved to have seen a new interview from her and just get kind of her where she was coming from on this. I don't know if I have the Days of Heaven Blu-ray from Criterion. I don't know if there's anything with her on that because that's from a little while ago, but yeah, I don't know, man. She's just such an interesting actor, and reading up a little bit about her, there's a lot of mystery behind a lot of like gaps that are left unfilled in her life. That I don't know, just very fascinating, man. Yeah, this was such a great reviewing, man. I truly just loved this film so much, and just yeah, when it was over, man, I was just so like I don't even know what to say. It was something else, man. Yeah, I had other films I intended to talk about, but I really, just wanted to tell you how much I love this film. And yeah, man, check out that Blu-ray that's coming out. I don't know when it's coming out exactly. I think May or June or something like that. Actually, it's the end of April now, so probably pretty soon. I got a couple minutes left. I don't have time to talk about anything else, but yeah, man, like I was saying before, yeah, check out the Michael Cimino book. Check out, of course, Out of the Dark. God, I don't really want to cut it early, but at the same time, I'm at like a weird point right now where I still got a couple minutes, but yeah, why not? I'll cut it early. There's no rules on this. So yeah, man, that's all I gotta say. I hope you guys are having a very productive week, and if not, I hope you intend to change that, and if not, well, I hope you have a good week, man. Life's too short not to enjoy it, so might as well enjoy it while you're here, man. All right, guys, take care. I'll talk to you next week, and all the best and all that good stuff.